Thank you for joining us. We're Bly and Holly and we live aboard 34 Vampires as continuous cruisers. Join us as we travel the canals of the UK through cities, towns and beautiful countryside. From peaceful mornings on the water to navigating busy locks, we share it all. Our adventures, the occasional mishaps, the beautiful scenery, our daily life and the wonderful wildlife around us. So after being kept awake by Canadian geese for multiple nights in Manchester, it's time for us to move on. If you've seen our previous videos, you'd know that we've been moving recently with Nigel and Lynn and Crystal, and it's time to say goodbye and to go off on our own again. And today we're going off to the Ashton 18 locks. So we're setting off through Manchester and we're on our way to the locks. This is the first flight of locks that we've done on our own. As far as we know, these are all single locks, which will make it a bit easier for us with the filling and the emptying of them, and we're going to see how we get on. We always expect to see some gongoozlers along the way when you're at the locks, because people like to kind of stop and look, but this one was an absolute pain in the backside. Every time I tried to walk past him to sort out doing the locks, he was always in the way. Absolute, just no self-awareness whatsoever, absolute pain in the backside. But some of them are really friendly, you know, stop and chat and everything while you're doing the locks. When we're on a bit of a stretch between some of the locks, we noticed that the boat was losing power, so we had to pull over, and there was a real sort of metal sort of like clanging noise that was coming from the propeller. So sort of we stopped, you know, and it's sort of one of those heart-wrenching moments where you kind of think that you've broken down. And by then I hadn't sorted out the RCR membership either, so we thought, oh my god, you know, what's going on? And so Bly went down the weed hatch and had a look, and he actually found a long piece of metal that was there that was clanking about, and was able to get that out. So other than a couple of nicks in the propeller, it was all right and we were able to carry on. So all the locks along the Ashton flight are single locks, which makes it a lot easier for us from the point of view of the boat doesn't move about so much when it's a single boat going through. And also as well, it means obviously they empty and fill faster, which is going to make it a little bit easier for us, and a lot of them are quite close together as well. As well as some of them being on a bit of an angle when you're trying to approach them, some of them had quite strong by-washers as well, which was pushing the boat as you were trying to sort of like straighten up to come in, which made a few of them a little bit tricky. Another thing as well with the single locks that makes it a lot easier for us specifically is the fact that we haven't got a centre line. We've got solar panels where a centre line would go, so what we will actually be doing at some point is going into a marina that does fabrication so that we can get some T-bars fitted on each side rail, so that at least we've got a little bit of give there. So, you know, not a full sort of centre line if you like, but it means that we'll still be able to get off the boat in, you know, when we're in the locks locks and things, because at least with the single locks it means that Beloy's able to get off the boat and give me a hand, because when we're in the double locks he's not able to do that, because obviously the boat's moving about a lot more, so he has to stay on there to manoeuvre it. It was lucky actually that he was able to get off and give me a hand, because some of them were really tough going. You can see one of the bywashers here over to the right of the lock, and these ones aren't really too problematic, but some of the ones that you get that are right next to the lock are really bad. When we were going through central Manchester during the Rochdale 9 locks, there was a bywash on the left, and as Bly was trying to pull into the left of Nigel and Lynn's boat in order to go into one of the double locks, we actually had a bit of a bump there and went into their boat, because the bywash was sort of pushing him off to the right at the same time as he was having to use more power to get past the bywash, at the same time as trying to pull into the left, which made it really, really difficult. It was pretty busy for us in Manchester, so we tend to try and stay out of the towns and cities a bit as much as possible, but due to breaches and things we had to go through that way, otherwise we were going to be stuck for a long time. Otherwise we were going to have to sort of replan our route and go quite a few months out of our way, because we tend to only move sort of like every 2 weeks. So yeah, it was a bit of an eye-opener for us going through Manchester and through these sort of built-up areas and everything as well. So we're aiming to sort of get more back out into the countryside again, because that's where we prefer to be. We're also keeping our eye out as well for boatyards, so that we can sort out getting the fabrication done for the T-bars, so that we've got some sort of centre line to make things a bit easier, because as I said before, some of the locks are quite difficult and my hands aren't the best, so it's a little bit difficult sometimes with being able to do some of the locks. So obviously because of this flight is all single, it's made it quite easy for me to be able to do. Because Bly's been able to come out and help me, but yeah, we need to definitely get it sorted for the long term. Doing a flight like this as well, sort of every lock kind of looks the same, so you kind of start losing count after a while of how many you've gone through. You can see on this one as well, there's a bywash there. This one isn't too bad because it's not sort of right up close to the lock gates, but some of them are absolutely, you know, terrible, especially sort of this time of year as well when this was filmed, whereby, you know, the rain has been heavier and everything, so those bywashes can be an awful lot stronger. You can see as well that all of the locks were pretty much leaking quite badly. Before we even got the paddles open, the water was just absolutely pouring through, and I don't think we saw any of the locks on this flight that weren't doing that. It's really sad as well to see how much plastic's in there. It's mainly plastic bottles that are in the locks and sort of around them, because kind of they gather in and get kind of stuck in the locks. So whenever sort of Bly's in the lock, he tends to fish out as many as he can. Yeah, it just seems to be sort of the nearer the towns and cities you are, you see an awful lot more of it. And you can see as well up here on the right what looks a bit like white railings. That was actually shown as a swing bridge on the map, and so we thought, you know, we sort of had the anti-vandal key out ready and everything in order to go and sort that out. But as it turned out, when we got there, it was just a little bridge, little footbridge that went over the side. You can see from the right that there's some sort of like a little bit that comes through. It's not really canal, is it? I don't quite know what it is, but yeah, that comes over across and under the bridge, so we didn't have to sort the bridge out there. We need a bit of knot practice as well, because we tend to find that, you know, when we're unmooring and stuff, it always takes so long because of how we've wrapped it round and how we've knotted it. So yeah, when we've got some time, we'll sit back and have a look on YouTube and see what we can find about the easiest ways to do it. Having only been on the water as well since last June when we launched in Liverpool, a lot of things are very much still a learning curve for us, although Bloy's doing really well with the driving. And yeah, because as you know probably, the Leaf flight was shut for quite a while and there were the droughts and everything last summer, so we were held up quite a bit. See here each side the sort of holes and the bits of wood that are going across that looks like railway sleepers. I suspect that that's probably some old ladders that were there in order for people to be able to climb out, that were sort of put in a bit earlier. A lot of the locks you see now have got sort of like metal ladders and things like that. You can see here that there's some white metal that's sticking up on the left. That's actually one of the more modern metal ladders to enable you to be able to climb up out of the lock. I can't remember how many locks we'd done by the time we got to here, but I remember we'd started getting pretty tired. I think we did the 18 locks over 2 days from what I remember, but even so it was still hard going when you're not used to them. Doing the flight, there was an awful lot of waiting around, waiting for locks to empty, waiting for them to fill, so obviously that kind of gave us a bit of a break in between, which was much needed, because a lot of the time, you know, we tend to moor up sort of for the 2 weeks before we move on again, because we're on a continuous cruising license. And so, you know, when you're doing this sort of much over 2 days, and I know a lot of them people do them over 1 day, it's pretty tiring to say the least. Bly wears combat trousers all the time. We actually got, when we got married, he was actually wearing black ones. He bought me some as well, and I've got to say they're absolutely brilliant for when you're doing locks and when you're moving, because you've got so many side pockets. You've got like room for all your different keys and things like that, so it's only really the windlass that you've got to carry or put on a strap. So if that's something that you've not thought about doing, I'd really recommend getting some. You know, you can get them in plain colours and things as well. But yeah, I find them absolutely brilliant. I can put small cameras in, keys, anti-vandal key, and you can kind of find everything in the pockets because you can put them in different ones. We only passed about 2 or 3 boats on the whole flight, and most of them were coming the opposite way, which was brilliant because it meant that they'd spotted us and they left some of the gates open for us, and so some of the locks were already set, which obviously saves time, saves work, and makes life a lot easier. This was one of the boats that kindly left 2 locks open for us because they sort of saw us from a bit of a distance, and so I can't remember the name of the boat, but very grateful to them because it is all about community and helping each other out. So as much as we kind of keep ourselves to ourselves, other than when we were travelling with Nigel, Lynn and Crystal, which we're very grateful for, yeah, besides that we tend to be very much on our own, so it is nice, you know, when other boaters kind of help out and you help them in return, and it's always very much appreciated. I remember Dave, who was on a wide beam with his wife in Litherland, which was our first stopping place after we launched, and he used to go past quite often in the wide beam. And so even when the sort of like duck hatch was shut and everything, I'd hear this voice shouting, "Hello Holly love," and look out, and they'd always give us a wave. They were really, really helpful to us on our first stop, because obviously being complete newbies, it's nice to have somebody around to give you a hand and give you advice. You can see here that this lock had quite a strong bywash on approach, but luckily it was sort of far enough back from the lock, and also as well we were able to go in nice and straight, which makes all the difference. The problem is sort of when you're sort of on a bend when you're going in, and also sort of when the bywash is a bit closer, so it pushes the boat over, because of course then you need more propulsion because of the bywash, but at the same time boats aren't sort of very quick to respond, and you're trying to do that turn as well, and that's kind of when it gets a bit tricky. This swing bridge was a manual one. I've got to say it was crazily heavy, absolutely ridiculous. I had to actually get somebody to help me with it, because there was no way that I could do it. There was no sort of like hydraulics or anything like that to help with it. You know, there was no box, you know, with the key and buttons or anything like that. And so yeah, just be aware if you go along there, it's incredibly difficult for one person to do. If somebody hadn't been there to help me, there's no way on earth I could have done it. At long last, we're not far off finishing the flight, which is great, because we're absolutely knackered. And so yeah, I think we've only got a couple more to go from here, and then we'll be at lock 18 where we can actually stop and get water and find somewhere to moor up, because once we get to lock 18 and we come out of that, we'll be turning off to the right, and from then on we'll be looking for our mooring space. So you can actually see in the video here, the guy that's dressed in black, he's behind me for part of it. He was actually stood there the whole time that we were in the lock, the whole time that we were filling for water in the lock, smoking cannabis and dancing. So why he ain't got a job, I don't know. But yeah, he was obviously quite happy doing what he was doing. I don't think he even realised that we were there. I don't think he turned around the whole time. He was too busy dancing. Our next plan now is to go and find a mooring spot not too far from here, because obviously after doing all the locks we're a bit tired, and so we want to find a decent spot now, and we're probably more up for 2 weeks because we tend to stay for longer periods of time, because for us, as much as we love the cruising, it's all about the lifestyle as well, and just sort of like being a bit more out in the peace and quiet whenever we can be. So yeah, so that's the plan. And also obviously it's all about finding somewhere as well that we can park the car, so that we haven't got too far to go, because we don't move that often, you know. It's sort of like the 2 weeks, obviously our water doesn't last as long as that, so by having the car there, or Sid's van that's got a water tank in as well, it means that we can go and sort of get water in jerry cans, or fill up the tank that's in the van and bring it back to the boat and kind of pump it into the tank. So it means that we can stay for longer. So one of the things that we're thinking of doing, that we haven't got around to yet but probably will do in time, is to actually swap the car in and get a van and have sort of like all the waterproof flooring put in, and have a water tank put in there, because obviously then you can fill up the tank, fill up the jerry cans, and all of a sudden you've got double the amount of water to bring back to the boat, which makes life a lot easier, and it doesn't put you under pressure to have to move so much. Obviously, you know, we'd still be moving like every 2 weeks or whatever. It just means that, you know, at no point would we sort of be stuck, so that we would have to go under the 2 weeks, or sort of like after 5 days, 6 days, or whatever, if we didn't want to, so that, you know, we didn't run out of water. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Obviously it's one with an awful lot of locks in it, and most of you that are boaters will be sort of like well acquainted with that flight, but also with locks obviously, because you can't avoid them on the canals. But yeah, also if you're traveling through that flight, it might give you an idea of what you'll come up against, where the bywashers are and things like that, and also obviously finding the water point, because then although we find them on the map, they're not always easy to find when you're actually on the boat, you know, and you sort of like stop to find them. So this one was actually straight after lock 18. So in the meantime, take care, happy cruising if you're boaters yourself, and we'll catch up with you soon.